Hello, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining us in our insightful webinar series on navigating cultural landscapes, the role of cultural intelligence and adaptive leadership. I'm sure there will be a lot of conversations, a lot of tools, concepts, and really unique insights and perspectives that will be shared by the end of the webinar, which will make you collect and structure your thoughts better. And I'm really looking forward to some really interesting questions coming by. And I'm sure, given the experience that we have had, some really interesting conversations, questions coming. And Elton, really looking forward to, having you answer those questions, and satisfying our, webinar participants. Before starting this webinar, I will just take a brief moment to talk about what we at Mirac do, right? So that you understand us as an organization, who we are, what we do, and how we help various organizations and corporates to do various L&D transformational programs for them. So, well, you guys must be aware. So Mirac has been derived from Greek word Miraki, which means whatever we do, we put our soul into something and we create a valuable piece for our clients. And that's what we have been doing since last 10 years. So Mirac has been existing with our sister brand Coast to Transformation, where we cater to various L&D requirements of various organizations. And since last 10 years, today we are the largest coaching company in the country. And we are also the most impactful leadership development organization in the country. Well, there are some really beautiful stats to share. In the last 10 years, we have been able to create more than 2,500 plus coaches across the globe. Few of our clients very famously say that we manufacture coaches. So yes, we have been manufacturing coaches more than 300 plus consistently in the last 4 years. We have done more than 17,000 hours of coaching assignments across 150 plus organizations and have empaneled more than 350 plus coaches for providing business coaching, leadership coaching, executive coaching, and various coaching as a service offerings. While we have been doing such transformational work, we got a request from a lot of CHROs that, why don't you do something into the L&D space as well? The kind of transformational work that you're doing in coaching, can you create more impactful L&D interventions? And that's where we started, dabbling with L&D as a space. And today, in the last couple of years, we have trained more than 9,000 plus employees across 100 plus organizations. And the NPS, the Net Promoter Score for all our interventions has been 70 plus throughout, as compared to the industry standard of 30 to 35. So that's what we have been believing in. The two words that has been very sacrosanct and which has been closest to our heart is transformation of individuals and impact for businesses. And while doing all this, the ethos that we follow is, can we bring quality at scale? And that is where we come with our own platform, where we, with Mirac, we use our own platform to deliver these trainings across the globe, where, one of the highlights of this is that we have done training for 1,800 plus people across the globe, did more than 2,000 plus coaching sessions, everything happening once in a month. And still our NPS was 72 plus for all the interventions that we did for various clients. So that's the hallmark of what we are trying to achieve consistently, and with everyone's blessings and our clients' support, we have been able to achieve this consistently. So thank you so much for being part of this journey and helping us to achieve those things consistently. And we look forward to doing that, again and again. Having said that, Chandna, can we go to the next slide, please? Yes. We have our man of the hour, Elton Ron Nathan, who will be taking us through this webinar, the topic that I talked about initially. Well, Elton comes with more than 25 plus years of corporate experience, working across organizations like Jet Airways, Kuwait Airways, SpiceJet, Healthcare Global. And currently he's heading the learning and organizational development for Apollo Health and Lifestyle Limited, one of the largest players in the retail segment in India currently. And when we were having a conversation, he talked about, culture. And one of the very famous sayings is that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I think that kind of, unravel that, can we have this conversation, having an evening cup of coffee with all of you and this. And that's how it unfolded into this webinar series today with Elton. He has been winner of many prestigious awards, to name a few: VAST Spotlight Award, the ISD Best CLO Award, SHRM Trailblazer Award, L&D Champion of the Year Award, to name a few. He believes in the philosophy that learning is better retained when it is put to use. And he hires people so that they retire from the organization, a philosophy that he follows for his talent acquisition. Well, really excited to welcome Elton for this webinar, and we really look forward to hearing his expertise and thoughts and his unique perspectives, that how he sees the role of cultural intelligence for today's leaders when they're adapting into this ever-changing world, which is just not stopping, right, guys? And that is where we would really like to take up, some really interesting, questions from you. One of the most interesting questions that we have been coming across from our clients has been how to manage multiple generations. And that's where, people talk about cultural intelligence. And the other part is the cross-cultural sensitivity, when people are working in MNCs and managing these cultures where everyone is now becoming conservative rather than being liberal. And answering those two really crucial questions, I'm sure that, Elton will put up a base that how we can actually see this with an open mind about this whole topic. So passing on the baton to Elton. Thank you so much, Elton, for your time. And we really look forward to, have your insights in the webinar further.
Thank you, Sandeep, and thank you, Chandana, for hosting the presentation for us. Honestly speaking, I've got this stress ring with me, which I'm going on pressing right below the camera, because when Rajat actually told me that I had to do this webinar, I'm in a coaching journey with him, so I really got nervous, and I was really wondering whether I'm the right fit for this, especially because I'm going to be speaking to so many stalwarts that know so much more than me as well. I mean, there's years of experience that come in the room right now, and I can see that your questions itself will be so much to learn from, and gives me an opportunity to answer them in whatever ways I can. So disclaimer here, I'm not a subject matter expert. I had to do a lot of research. In fact, when Rajat connected me with Sandeep and Chandana, they had asked me, like, what would you like to speak on? We have three topics, and they gave me 3 topics, and that was cultural intelligence. The second was digital intelligence, and the third one was adaptive leadership. And then I said, like, I thought of it, and I said, like, okay, choose anything between cultural intelligence and adaptive leadership. And then Chanda says, like, can you do something like the role of cultural and leadership intelligence in adaptive leadership? And that made it a little more difficult, because now I had 2 topics to talk about. So yeah, thank you for that, Chandana, for putting me in that spot. But I accepted the challenge, and I'm so glad that I'm here right now with all of you. So great. So let's move on. I think the introduction was way flattering to me, and thank you so much, Sandeep, for that. So let's move on with our slides, and I'd like to actually tell you a little about myself, and this is my whole journey, which took me back. In '97, where I started off actually as a cabin crew, and not many people know that. And I've gone in through a lot of roles, right from operations to HR to learning and development, and back in operations. And then finally, I decided that yes, this is what it is, and learning is something which I really love. And if we go on to the next slide as well, getting back to where I actually started from, and that's 1997. I started my my career as a cabin crew, and during this time, I flew to a lot of places, and I flew with Jet and Kuwait Airways, and then moved into management side of airlines as well. But the little drops that you see, those are the number of countries that I've actually visited, and a lot more countries cities in India as well. So I went through a lot of cultures, met a lot of people. I've met over about 100,000 people with different backgrounds, different cultures, different nationalities, different ethnicities, and stuff like this. And as I saw the world, it started getting smaller and smaller. And we usually coin this phrase whenever we meet someone and we know somebody else through them, and we said the world is so small, especially and then it gets even more smaller when we actually think of who we know through each other. But in reality, it does not actually get smaller, especially when we have to actually think of people's thoughts. And in spite the fact that the world is becoming smaller, becoming much more easier to travel across, to meet more cultures and ethnicity, it's actually becoming more coherent. Take me for example as a crew, and as a crew, I visited a lot of countries, and while I visited all these places, whenever I did, travel, and if we go to the next slide, you could say that I actually looked at the world like a flying zombie. And I was actually looking at the world as a flying zombie. And when we have to relate these words of a flying zombie, I would say in cultural intelligence, the word is actually the flying dead. And when we say what is the flying dead? It's basically, as a crew, I did not know what was going around me. I didn't know exactly where I was. I would wake up and then suddenly wonder, where am I? Am I at home? Am I in Paris? Am I in Rome? Am I in Delhi? I didn't really know. And I visited Paris so many times. But you know what was the most important thing while I was in Paris? It was not the Eiffel Tower. It was not Champs-Élysées. It was actually my bed. I just wanted to catch up with that sleep. And while I was there, it was so tiring that I didn't know the world actually. And I suddenly started feeling to myself that even though I'm visiting all these places, I'm actually not knowing anybody, what they do, and what exactly is going on there. So I decided that I'm not going to hit the bed every time I travel. And I started moving out to know more people, to know their cultures, to know what exactly happens in that city. And while all this is being said, I'm sure you must be wondering, what is it to do with today's topic, especially with cultural intelligence and adaptive leadership? And if you actually have to compare it to the success of leaders today, especially in today's world, leaders can get into similar states of being in a flying dead situation in an organization that they work for. And they could be becoming a flying zombie or a steady zombie in a zone where they know nothing about the people in the organization. And this could be actually very, very detrimental to the organization. Now, cultures differ from land to land, from people to people, from organizations to organizations. And we all need to know this term, and it's called cultural intelligence if we really want to succeed. Globalization, for example, has meant that there are more potential flying dead leaders than ever before. And many, of course, claim that they have a cultural intelligence and that too in abundance. But unfortunately, they measure all of these in air miles. And the real challenge is that for them to get really enough of CQ, I'll refer to cultural intelligence as CQ from now on, and now and then. So if they wanted to get more of CQ, when they land, they have to understand where they are, who they're talking to, and then use what they've learned to succeed. And the leaders who fail to do this will continue collecting stamps on their passports, and that's it. But they need to build bridges if they want to really change the world. So, more so in the organizations, with the diverse cultures that we have, it's very, very essential for all of us as leaders not to be turning into being flying dead people. And so, what is cultural intelligence, and how did it come about? And so, let's go back to a bit to understand what exactly is CQ, cultural intelligence. Initially, society placed a lot of value on. They placed a lot of immense value on intellectual intelligence, IQ, and they viewed this as a success. And the IQ measured the cognitive abilities, the logical reasoning, problem-solving skills, analytical thinking, and things like that way. And for many years, the next slide, high scores were considered to be the primary predictor of the success. People were chosen based on what was their IQ scores. There were standardized tests, there were academic assessments, and all of this predominantly on their cognitive skills, often the equating their intelligence with the ability to excel in these areas. I remember my granddad telling me that, the best thing to do is get a job in the government office and you'll be set. And for that, you really need to work hard. You really need to have a high IQ, and minimum is 150 sons. So you better start working about that. And over time, the limitations of IQ as a sole predictor for success became apparent. And there was another rise that actually came up. Now, high IQ did not necessarily mean that it translated to being effective leadership. It did not mean that there's going to be interpersonal skills that are going to be great. And uh, everyone had to evaluate to become a successful leader. And if you had to actually think, is Yoda, and that's the reason why I put Yoda, the ones who are familiar with Star Wars, if he's coming to your mind, then I think you're utterly wrong, because he's not really intelligent as a successful leader. But this little green Jedi Master is an expert, especially for one of the most important skills, and that's emotional intelligence. And this is the concept that actually came out with Daniel Goleman, and I'm sure that you've read his book. Leaders just can't be book smart. They have to be people smart. They had to know what is vulnerability, what is being empathetic, how do you connect with people around, how do you build relationships. And Daniel Goleman realized that the limitations of IQ had to be recognized, and the importance of EQ in leaders now have to actually take over. And how you deal with people's emotions and how you deal with your own emotions. And that's how you can be a successful leader. And his book, The Emotional Intelligence, known to most, this one is self-awareness, and this is about understanding one's emotions, strengths, weaknesses, and values. Then there's self-regulation, where you manage and you control your emotions and your impulses. Then there's motivation. What is the passion that you need to achieve your goals, and what is the energy or the drive and the persistence that you may need? The fourth one is empathy, and that's something that we all always say a leader should have. And this is the ability to understand and share the feelings with people. And then finally is the social skills, how you're managing relationships and building networks. Now, what was the impact of EQ on leadership? In the next slide, you'd see that it emphasizes basically understanding and managing emotions. Second is fostering better interpersonal relationships. And then finally, enhancing your leadership effectiveness. Now, leaders with high EQ are better equipped to handle stress and communicate effectively, and they create positive work environments. But these are the limitations here as well. And I'm just seeing if there are any questions also that are coming up in the chat room. So you might see my eyes waver here and there. When we come across, the limitations are that when we come across boundaries, we realize that cultural indifferences actually take a toll on the emotional intelligence that exists in people. What may have been great in one culture or land may not be applicable in another culture. So what would happen is that I might be understanding the emotions in my own country or in my own organization really well because of a culture that has already been developed. And then when I go to some other place, it's very difficult to actually, adjust to that. So the limitations of EQ then started to set in. And then, especially when it had to do with different lands, for example, if you take a look at this video, which is coming up next, I'm sure you'll understand what I mean, and then we'll debrief on that a little bit.
Hi, can you take me to the train station? Oh, great. Oh, crap. No, sir, sorry, I wanted a taxi. I want a taxi.
No problem.
Okay, sorry, thanks. Let me just grab my bag. Thanks. Ow, jeez! Whoa, 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 no, no, stop, 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 stop! No, no, stop! Go! You jump! You must jump that foot! There's no room! Come! Come! You must jump! Jump! Jump!
Kanapuri is very clean. Do you have a business card, Mr. Toad?
Yeah, Todd. Just call me Todd. That's fine. What?
Sir, you should not place the hand that has been in your mouth back in the food. And you should not eat with your left hand. In India, we eat with the right hand. Left hand is considered to be unclean.
Unclean, yeah.
Why?
Why?
Okay.
Bro, what is that? Oh, this. This is our MPI monitor, minutes per incident. This is going to go up on the wall. This is the average time our agent takes to solve the call, What? Oh, that is just a cow. Must have wandered in. 1 minute. Arey, kiski gaye?
1 rupee. 1 rupee, 1 rupee.
Not a good time.
1 rupee.
Tomorrow.
Only 1 rupee.
No, I don't have a rupee.
Please, please, only 1 rupee.
Is that all you can say?
Hungry, only 1 rupee. 1 rupee, 1 rupee.
All right.
1 rupee.
Now leave me alone, all right? No, don't touch. No. Oh. Hey.
Yeah.
Hey. No toilet paper.
Hello, sir. How may I help you, sir?
I'd like 2 cheeseburgers.
Oh,
a large
sorry,
fries.
sir. But we don't have cheeseburger here, sir.
What? I thought this was McDonald's.
Oh, sorry, sir. This is McDonald's.
Bro, I'm very sorry. I should have told you this earlier. You should not wear good clothes on this day. Watch out! I'm very sorry, Mr. Toad. You should not have worn good clothes on the day of Holi. Holy what? Just Holi. Celebration of color, changing of seasons.
So I think most of the scenes here, I think we can all relate to as something which is very, very natural to us. But for anyone who's coming from the West, I think everything is absolutely absurd. My own brother, who's actually moved to Australia a couple of years ago, whenever he comes to India, he acts as if he's, not really aware of what's happening here. So I said, hey, you were born and brought up here. And, I had to actually remind him that, yeah, this is from the movie Call Out. So a great movie. Had to clip up a lot of scenes from there and then bring this up. But because globalization and multicultural interactions become so prevalent right now in our life, this now develops something else that we actually need to, enhance in our own life. And that's the CQ that we were talking about, the cultural intelligence. The next slide, please. And cultural intelligence, if we have to see the definition, it's the capability function effectively across national, ethnic, and organizational cultures. It's the ability to cross cultural boundaries. I would say it that way. It's how you could actually thrive in diverse environments. And this is even in organizations. It involves you having a deep interest in other humans. It talks about how open we are when we have to actually learn about different cultures. It's our willingness to adapt, and that's how we look at it. And it provides and helps people a successful way of living and how they can work in a better environment. Cultural intelligence actually came up by Christopher and Soon Ang, who actually introduced this concept, and this was introduced in the year 2003, as you see the book there. And Ang noticed that during her extensive travel, it wasn't only our values that varied across the world. Even the values we assigned to our lives were far from identical. And the reality of our vast differences coexist with still vaster potential of human intelligence. So drawing upon our social, emotional, or if I say academic faculties, CQ allows us to find solutions, adapt to our environments, and learn from each other. Now, cultural intelligence begins first with, as you see there, something called a CQ drive, or cultural intelligence drive. And this is something which is more motivational. It's the motivation and the confidence that we need to work with others. And the next is the CQ knowledge, which is cognitive. And this is understanding the kinds of differences that people have in the group versus without resorting to, stereotype specific cultures. And the third is your CQ strategy, which is metacognitive. And this is about learning how to plan effectively, how to remain aware in the moment. And finally, the fourth one is your CQ action, and that's the behavior. That's the way you adapt to the behaviors and as per the situations that actually come up. And that's where we look at adaptive leadership, and that's where we see the link. So let's go deeper into each one of them. And motivational cultural intelligence. And this is about having the drive and energy to learn about and engage in cross-cultural situations. What are the ways that we can have high motivational intelligence in our own organizations? How do we interact with people? How do we interact with different cultures? How do we feel confident in handling these situations successfully? And there are three components to this as well. One is an intrinsic interest. That is your personal enjoyment, your satisfaction, and how it comes from interacting with people. When you learn more about them, when you ask them about their culture, what exactly is your culture, and you share that as well with them. And it's your high intrinsic interest that you find value in those experiences. And the more you learn, the more better you feel. The other is the extrinsic interest, which you see on the right side. And this is involving being motivated by external rewards like promotions, raises, or new job opportunities. And organizations often offer these rewards to encourage their employees to actually take on assignments, especially with teams. And that's why there are so many things within an organization like a best team, recognition or collaboration awards and stuff like that way. And the third is your self-efficacy to adjust. And this is just a coincidence in one's ability to adapt and succeed in different cultural settings. So by developing these components, individuals can actually become more motivated to participate and benefit from the cross-cultural experiences that we have, not just in our personal lives, but also in our professional lives. The next one is cognitive CQ. And cognitive CQ is about having a broader understanding of different cultures. It involves knowing general information about cultures as well as specific details about their context. And Google, for that matter, helps us a lot in our life right now, because we learn a lot about cultural aspects and things in that way. And even here we have different components, which I won't really dwell too much on. One is on what's the general knowledge that you can have, what's the specific knowledge that you can have. And these are the two things that you, by learning about the individual, you can actually navigate and you can succeed in diverse cultural settings. The next is your metacognitive CQ. Now, this is about how we think and how we process cultural information. It involves more on how we are aware of our own as well as others' cultural assumptions. And this is very, very similar to your EQ, because when you think about it, you're actually thinking of your own emotions and others' emotions. But here you go a little step beyond and you understand your own culture and others people's culture, and then you kind of merge that together. And you say that, yes, you are on a high metacognitive CQ when you actually would say that you're actually thinking about thinking. Okay, so metacognitive cultural intelligence is actually thinking about thinking. So your thoughts within your thoughts. And this comes with different components like planning, awareness, checking, and things like that way. And by engaging in these processes, you'll be able to navigate and learn from cultural experiences, cross-cultural experiences. The fourth one is your behavioral CQ. And the next slide, if you see, this is more about being able to apply your cultural knowledge in practical ways, how you can demonstrate appropriate verbal and non-verbal behaviors. And this is really important because people with high behavioral CQ actually communicate much more effectively and respectfully because they can adjust their communication style to that cultural context. Have you noticed, for example, many of the Indians, when they have to speak to an American, they actually try and put an American accent. It's not because they want to show off or be it's basically them telling themselves that they want to communicate in a better way to make that person understand themselves more, and that is something really good. So I used to have this thought that why is he putting such an accent? It sounds so fake, but it's actually that he's culturally intelligent because he's actually trying to get closer to people who are actually new to the organization or to the country or anywhere, because they may not be able to understand our dialect. And that's the reason why when you adapt to them and try to, resonate with that kind of accent, you actually help them. So that's the verbal behavior that we look at. Now take a look at this video and see how behavioral CQ goes wrong, for example. And we'll talk about that as well, the next video.
Please tell me you speak English. I'm Detective Carter. Do you speak any English? Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? I cannot believe this shit. First I get a bullshit assignment, now Mr. Rice-A-Roni don't even speak American. Come on, man, my ride over here. Put your bag in the back. Put your bag in the back. No. You put your own shit in the back. I'm not a sky cap. I'm FBI, you understand? The hell you think this is? Get out of the car. Get out of the car now. Where you think you're going, huh? Didn't I tell you to stay over there by the Duke?
Hey, what do you think you're doing?
This is mind your own business, old man, and stay in the car. Hey, what you doing? I was just trying to find out where you was going, man. You thought I was gonna shoot you? I wanted to go with you.
Hey, what's happening here?
Put the gun down. Put the gun down. I ain't playing with you, man. You think I'm playing with you?
Don't move. Drop your guns.
Hey, man. Look, FBI.
I'm policeman. I'm just showing him how to take a gun from a suspect.
So he just realized that he actually speaks English himself. And if you've seen that movie, it's Russia. And I like Ankita's question in the chat box. She asks, is it like social intelligence, which is a combination of emotional and cultural intelligence? You're bang on, actually. So social intelligence is definitely getting cultural intelligence into the picture, and it's definitely close. And when you actually understand the person's social, you then become emotionally intelligent. So it's all part and parcel of the same thing. So yeah, we were talking about the verbal behaviors that we have under behavioral cultural intelligence. Then there's your non-verbal behavior that we actually also have, and then how you speak and how you express yourself in whatever ways possible. So how is cultural intelligence now important, especially in leadership? And specifically here, we are actually relating it to adaptive leadership. And this I'm going to answer Ankita's question one more time, next slide, where cultural intelligence is actually, if you can go to the next slide, is actually the natural evolution from the now well-established IQ and EQ. And it's all derived from there. It's all evolved. And good leaders actually need all these three. And it's time to dwell on the second topic of our day today, and that's adaptive leadership. And while I don't intend to get into different styles of leadership, and I'm sure that you must be having a lot of questions, I'd prefer taking it at the end because there's a couple of more slides that I have. Adaptive leadership is more about a concept which was developed by Ronald and Marty Linsky in their book. It's more like you can imagine yourself being the captain of a ship. And while you're doing this, you're sailing through different seas, right? And you have turbulent waters, you have still waters, you have sometimes dangerous waters, maybe things that can actually cause danger to you. Now, the leadership style is less about having the answers. It's about how you're going to be asking the right questions. And it's about rallying your crew to tackle the different challenges and thrive no matter what comes your way. So 3 ways that you can actually do this. If you can go back to the previous slide, I'm sorry. I think we moved way ahead. Yeah. So 3 ways that we can actually do this is by embracing uncertainty, by facilitating change, and by learning and adapting. And this is your secret weapon. If you really need to have teamwork, you need to ensure that you embrace change. You need to know how to solve these problems together. You need to know how to spark an innovation, how to get flexibility into your work. It's like the changing weather. So how uncertain the weather can be and how predictive you can be is 2 different things. Maybe you thought something is going to happen, but it's going to be very different. So how can you get comfortable with the ambiguity and learn how to sail through the storm as well? And that's how you learn and you adapt. And in today's world, this is really important. So
in some Asian cities, it's considered acceptable for a commuter to fall asleep on the shoulder of a stranger. In New York, it's quite a different story. Of course, you could always adapt.
Thank you. Can just move on to the slides as well. So you see how it is different in different lands, but you really need to adapt and go through everything. Can go to the next one as well. The next slide. Yeah. So research shows that there's a direct positive correlation between cultural intelligence and team effectiveness. Studies have shown that a person's level of cultural intelligence is directly related to their cultural effectiveness in the diverse setting, as you see. No, previous slide, please. I'm not gone to core and flexes yet. And studies from across the globe have shown that a person's level of CQ is actually directly related to cultural effectiveness, especially when it comes to diverse settings. So the higher a person's CQ, the more better he is to have a better judgment. He can have better decision making abilities. He'll have better leadership abilities. And in a team setting, employees with higher CQ, they're more likely to be better communicators. They're more likely to share knowledge, and they are more likely to be innovative. So simply put, cultural intelligence enhances overall performance and the outcomes of diverse teams. And all of this stems from what we see in the next slide, which we will refer to today as core and flex. And core and flex is understanding what it is. Basically, you can actually think of it as a cone that you actually see and see how core and flex actually work. And this is the key to developing CQ. Now, in this cone, as you see, core is on the left-hand side. For me, at least, that's how I'm seeing it. I hope it's the same for you. And flex is on the right side. It's got a line in between. Now, everyone has a core, and this is the crucial part of everyone's identity. Your core is your belief. It's your behaviors, the values that you have. And these are some things that you would say that, oh, my dead body, I'm not going to be changing this. I'm not going to be compromising this. These are things that is not going to change easily. These are some things that we say are solid in strength. For example, your integrity, your honesty, your leadership, ability of taking decisions and actions, for example. There's some very things that don't really change very easily. And your core behaviors, and these are the regular team meetings that you might be wanting to have just to maintain that transparency and communication. And these are elements that are intrinsic, and they usually remain constant. And then there's the flex, which you see on the right side, the green side, right? And this is, again, part of your identity. And in our flex, what we see is that we can choose to change things that we can adapt to. There are certain circumstances that allow us to actually adjust to certain things. And there are certain things that I want to change. Like, for example, I'm a person who does not celebrate birthdays. So I have my core belief that I will not celebrate a birthday irrelevant of anything else. But there are some times when I need to, maybe be in an occasion where I'm part of a whole crowd. And if there's someone there, maybe I'm not taking part of that particular thing, but I'm around there. So it can show me that, I'm flexed my approach to certain things. So there are certain things which I'm not going to change, and then there's something which I can, think. So flex is more of the fluidity, and it's equal to a strength. And this is your beliefs, your behaviors and values that you're willing to adjust, and so that you can better relate to other people. Now, people with high CQ, they know what their core is, and they know what their flex is. And they have a very clear sense of what parts of their identity they will not change and what they're going to be okay to change with. Now, people with high CQ, they're able to move their boundaries. So the middle line that you see there in between your core and flex, it is flexible. It can move. So it is up to you and up to your belief as to how you can adjust, that you can actually move that, especially when you have to think of other cultures that you're dealing with. Now, if leaders have a strong core, and the more the core is inflexible, people will actually trust you. And the more flexible your flex is, again, the more people will trust you. And the balance in the line, as we said, can actually, learn to adapt as evolving changes come about. And that's what cultural intelligence leaders are all about. We can do well to reflect our own core and our flex, and we can see how we can balance these to enhance our cultural intelligence and leadership effectiveness. Now, once we've worked with the core and the flex, we need to now keep them in review. We need to keep testing. We need to keep reading. We need to keep transplanting. And to make sure that these things are in the right place, our flex is actually going to be flexing, because we are open-minded and we are okay to flex that flexibility, and that's why a well-defined core and flex keeps us really culturally strong and with a cultural intelligence in us. So big problems can no longer, if they could, be solved by one person, one culture, one continent. Just when we operate alone, no, it doesn't happen that way. We need to collaborate if we want to be successful. We've been taught from childhood, man is a social animal. We need the other person. We need to have a synergy between each one of us. So we have to embrace cultural intelligence if we want to be adaptive, and especially in our leadership styles, we need to ensure that we do this. Organizations will face challenges internally and will have various things. So if you do not collaborate, you are definitely going to be, very rigid with certain things, and that is what is going to, bring you down. So the secret of innovation is led by people or leaders who actually have high CQ and who see things differently. And innovation needs people who actively seek to encourage difference. I repeat, to encourage difference, to prod it, to push it, to test it, enjoy it, to thrive with it. These are the things that we need to do. And if people want to de-harness, even if we secretly know that they have no real idea where it came from and what it might take them, only that it won't be where it went before. So I'd like to also introduce you to the third alternative, which was popularized in the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I'm sure a lot of you may have read this book. Now, the third alternative basically provides a cooperative solution that results in a win-win spirit. And this is so that everyone feels good about what is happening. And when you're culturally intelligent, you value differences. You look at people, you explore their ideas. You have a clarity in your mind where you want to go. You seek first to understand, then be understood. So you basically, putting empathy in your life as well. So that's where, you put your social intelligence, combining it with emotional and cultural intelligence together. And you come up with ideas so that you can take account into everyone's ideas. So 1 and 1 does not equal 2, it equals 3, it equals 10, it can equal 100, it can even equal 1,000. And the idea behind this is to keep communicating, keep brainstorming so that everyone has a solution and everyone feels good that they're being heard. And we listen to them with the intent to understand, not reply. We express how we feel and we see those solutions. So adaptive leaders have to explore this third alternative. They should be open to everyone in the room contributing towards the success of the organization or a particular project that they might be working on. In fact, there's a similar book, another book that Stephen Covey came up with, and that's solely on the third alternative that I would also recommend you reading. So I have another video which is there, but time constraints, I'm not going to play that. But what I'm going to do is going two slides ahead of that, and we're going to be seeing how we can enhance. I'll skip this video right now because it's a little longer video. Maybe I can send that to you if you want on, maybe Sandeep or Chandra can send it to you. That's not a problem. So how do we enhance leadership through cultural intelligence? We need to ensure that we navigate and leverage cultural differences effectively. And we can do this by improved communication. We need to ensure that we communicate in the right way, understand people's backgrounds, see where we can reduce the misunderstandings. Sometimes, we might get irritated with certain people's accent as well. That very commonly happens to many people. It's something which is inherent, but we need to learn to accept it. Maybe our articulation or pronunciations are different and we might be very learned with English, but how well are you communicating it and how is the other person with his accent actually communicating it? Accept it. Foster innovation, in fact. See where you can actually get their ideas out. And no matter how they communicate their ideas, take it. Make sure that you have interactions that are effective so that you can show people that you're actually collaborative in your approach and have an inclusive atmosphere. And we always talk about inclusivity and stuff like that. We've added even belonging to DEI right now. So this is all about fostering innovation by accepting them and accepting people. So this will actually enhance your conflict resolution. You're going to have lesser problems in yourself, and you're going to be building trust, not just for yourself, but for people in your organization, for the organization, for the society on a whole. And it's like a ripple effect that you're actually going to be looking at. And you're definitely going to be enjoying your strategic decision making that is going to come up. We have people like Sundar Pichai, we have people like Indra Nui, we have people like Satya Nadella who we can actually learn from, and we can see how they've been able to adapt to the different cultural contexts that they have been part of right now, and how they've been successful. It's because they have a high cultural intelligence that they accept everything. So what are the strategies to develop CX in AL, as we say it, as adaptive leadership? And that's the next slide. First is you need to have a self-reflection. You need to have this as an awareness. You need to regularly assess your core values, see what traits you have that need to be changed. I mentioned the core and flex. See what you want to, flex a bit, what you want to keep fixed on, and adapt with the society. Seek diverse experiences. And this is not just cultures, but behaviors in the organization, people who come from different environments. You need to ensure that you see that. Another thing is that you need to embrace humility. One of the very, very key things that every person should have in an organization if they want to be an adaptive leader. When you learn from people, I need to be able to learn and accept what people say. And if you have made a mistake or you don't know something, please be open about it and say it. That's no problem. The minute you do that, you show your humility. Another thing is cultivate empathy and challenge biases. And this is something that we always talk about. So here's a disclaimer now that I like to say in my next slide. I'm not a subject matter expert, but I've taken a lot of stuff from these 3 books. And David Livermore, he's someone who you can actually look up, really, really keen person on cultural intelligence. And these are the books that you can actually go through. So this is where I got my information from, and thank you. I see Padma Kumar has a question. If the flex conflicts with the core, how does adaptive leadership pan out? Well, let me tell you that you need to have the midline very, very clear. You need to know what your core is, what are your beliefs, and you need to see what can you actually stretch out from that, and maybe the line that's in between both of them, you need to see where you can actually move that around, and you will not have a conflict if you have a very strong, if you have a flexible flex and a strong core. So though that line will definitely move, and that's how your adaptive leadership actually pans out. So great. So that's my scanner. If you'd like to connect with me, and plus, I think if you go through Mirak's, posts on LinkedIn, they've already tagged me. So I would love to connect with you and talk more about it. But if there's any questions, I'm pretty open to it. In fact, there are a few more slides on the questions that have come up before, which I'd definitely like to address. And we have a couple of minutes more as well. But before I take that, I'd like to tell you about a cultural notice that I made actually when you're in Japan and you do a session like this way, and you have reach the end of the session, you have to ask the Japanese, do you have any questions? Do you know that they do not raise their hands? And anyone who actually looks at them would actually think that, okay, there's no questions and might just step down. But if you know the Japanese, they don't look people straight into their eye, right? They, in fact, look down while they speak. They speak with a lot of respect. But when you say, do you have any questions? You have to notice whether the eyes of the Japanese actually brighten up and look at you. That's your sign that they do have questions. And when you see an eye opening up to you in the audience, that's the cue that a lot of presenters take and say, do you have anything to ask me? And that's when the Japanese actually open up and ask their question. They say, yes, I do have a question, and then they speak. So they do not raise their hands because they feel that it's, very rude to the person who's presenting, because they don't want to challenge him. I wish I was in Japan right now, but I'm definitely open to questions, and I don't consider it rude if you have any questions. But I'm definitely looking at your bright eyes if you're opening them. All you need to do is this and look into the eyes of the camera. So yeah, so that's something. If there's anyone that has a question.
Thank you, Elton, so much. I think it was amazing webinar. Videos was a great surprise for us. We went through, some of the amazing movies that we have already seen. We liked it, that what it is, and you have also talked about what it is not. So it gives us a broad spectrum that, where we do lie today in terms of the cultural intelligence. And one thing I liked about, one point which I would really like to take away is the core and reflex that you talked about. And you said that the flex is there to flex, which the statement has such a deeper meaning when you actually think over it, that, what the flex means and how you draw a line. And that line can be always changed because flex is supposed to be flex. And that is really an eye opener. And it's a very good question from Padma Kumar, where I see that, if the flex conflicts with the core, where, a lot of leaders face today a lot of challenges, considering, in this ever changing world, a lot of times the cultural changes brought in, doesn't, align with the core that you have been driving the organization. And it becomes very critical for leaders to adapt or see how they can navigate those pieces while they are doing that. Having said that, I have one or two really interesting questions which people have posed to us, and which I kind of touched upon at the start. The two questions that I would like to understand more is, so we are, based out of the Bengaluru startup hub, and, a lot of people are getting hired because the startup is only booming, and people get hired from various, lands of India. And we know that, how diverse we are. But we see that a lot of people coming from north, coming to the south side, and they're not able to understand what is their core and what is there to flex. So how to make, these generations understand the sensitivity around this? While we look at the cultural diversity outside, but how can we look that, as a country inside, is something that we would like to understand. With a more, I am sure that this is a complex question, connecting to the multiple generations that we are coming across. Because I think right now, the biggest challenge that organizations and cultural leaders like you are facing is that there are multiple generations to manage. And one very big challenge that most of the leaders are facing, that the cultural statements has been defined 20 or 30 years ago. Are those cultural statements relevant to the Gen Zs and the upcoming Gen Alphas? And is there a cultural change required? So happy to hear from you. How do you see this?
Yeah, great. And this also links to the question that's in the chat box, so I can answer both them together. Apiksha Jain asks, what's the role of cultural intelligence in cross-cultural context? So I'll take the cross-culture as North and South right now. And how can it be effective? And how does adaptive leadership actually help in these scenarios? So I would definitely say, I did touch about the third alternative, and that's about valuing differences. So if I have to actually speak about it, we need to be a little more open-minded. And we saw what EQ is about. We're all right now tuned in our heads how we need to be empathetic about people, how we need to actually have certain things, how to understand our own emotions, and how to understand the others. So when you actually merge this and you value differences, you're open to actually actively listening to them. When we say actively listening, we don't autobiographically respond to them. We actually ensure that we empathetically respond to them, or empathetically first listen and then after that respond. And sometimes language, culture can be different, especially with different cultures that actually bring about. It's not just in Bangalore, but even people who go to the north also have the same problem, or people who move various countries or different cities also have this problem. But what we really need to have is communication between each other. And one thing that really helps in a lot of organizations is having a lot of learning and development interventions that need to take place with regards to cultural intelligence. And when we say cultural intelligence, especially when we want to do it, don't keep it online on an LMS. I would definitely say no. Don't keep it as a classroom where, Elton is just speaking for the last 45 minutes and then, there's no two-way. It should be a two-way thing. It's not going to be a webinar. It needs to be an interactive workshop that actually helps people to, bring themselves closer to each other. One thing that I always say that can be is just a normal potluck, a potluck that can bring everyone's cultures together with the food that they have. to dive into something like that way, or just understanding certain people, or having a newsletter that actually talks about the different kind of people in the organization, or if you have people joining in your organization, have a kind of a little blog that says a little bit about that person, make that person feel good. Have the HR actually speak to these people so that when they're coming from another place, let them explore more. So for example, when we do a couple of org announcements, we also ask them, what are your hobbies? Okay, what do you like to do in your spare time? And things like that. And we actually publish this in some of our key organization announcements that we have, so that people can actually look at this and say that, hey, wow, okay, fine, he knows how to sing. And the next party comes along and says like, hey, Elton knows how to sing. He said that in his inaugural announcement. Let's hear from him. And that kind of opens up your culture between each people, and you really need to communicate well between each other and understand each other. I think that's the key. If I don't know if I've answered the question in the right way, or there's anything else.
No,
And
so much.
and adding to even Abiksha's question, and how does adaptive leadership help in these scenarios? The first thing, it's a top-down approach. So leaders need to be adaptive in having this approach to people, and treating people as their family in their organizations. And as soon as you do that, that's what's going to be opening up them to be more adaptive and understanding. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Elton. I think, we have already overshot the time. So
yeah,
if you give us permission, we can, close the webinar.
Yeah.
Any questions? We can take one last question if anyone has.
There was another question which I really liked, and if there's anyone who wants to say something, they can. Is what are the measurement tools that are available for CQ? And CQ differs from IQ, first of all, and it cannot be quantified by a score, right? And there's no simple cultural intelligence scale which measures ourselves against it. And it's indeed unhelpful to think of CQ as a number. But we should think of it as something that we want to continuously improve, something that we want to develop, something that we want to, see improving in the duration of our life. But there are two tools that are there, and one is an 8-pole by common purpose, which is the book Julia Middleton that she wrote on cultural intelligence, that mentions about the 8-pole. If you go through the website, you'll also see the questionnaire there. You can download it free of cost. She's giving it to everyone free of cost. And the other one is the CQ report, and that is by David Livermore, another great author on cultural intelligence. And he has this site called Cultural Intelligence Center. And he talks about how you can be a subject matter expert by just going through this thing. So explore it. If that suits you, you can do that. That's a great thing.
Sure. Thank you, Elton. I think that was really informational and very insightful. We have to look inside in terms of how we can, develop this cultural intelligence within ourselves as a leaders, and even, how we can do it gradually over a period of time and be built in our organization. So thank you so much, Elton, for your time. It was really amazing to hear you. And I'm sure that, the participants really got a lot of things to think about and, share with us. So everyone, Chandana will share a feedback link. Please, if you can take some time and give us a feedback on the webinar and anything that we need to improve upon. Happy to hear your thoughts. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And thanks for being an amazing participant in this whole webinar, and looking forward to connecting with you personally. Thanks, Sandeep, and thanks, Rajat, especially. Thanks also to Chandana for being a great behind-the-scene person. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elton.
Bye-bye.